We're here today with a Piper Cherokee, but this isn't no normal Cherokee. This one has a whopping 235 horsepower. So we're here with this 235 horsepower Piper Cherokee. It's known as the PA-28 235 Pathfinder. It's a really cool aircraft. It's a local one from Murray Bridge, and it's going to be probably the cleanest Piper I've ever seen, especially for this vintage. Now it sounds like I'm trying to sell it, raving it up, but I promise you the owner has no plans on getting rid of her anytime soon. Since 1960, the Piper Cherokee PA-28 lineage has been a staple of the GA training industry, and this one is no different. Now, typically with your Pipers, the suffix at the end actually denotes the engine's horsepower. The Piper Cherokee is actually the fourth most produced aircraft in the world with over 32,000 models built. The Piper 235 first came out in 1963. Now what we've got here is a 74 model, which is the second generation and what they titled the Pathfinder. Now it's a bit better than the original models. It's still got the 235 horsepower, but it's got a 5-inch longer fuselage, so you've got a bit more room, and it shares its fuse with the 180 horsepower brother, the Piper Archer, which is still in current production. Also, from the earlier 235 to the later one, they lifted the gross weight by 100 pounds. So these Cherokee 235s were brought out as a direct competitor to Cessna's ever popular Cessna 182. Now, these ones have got being the early models, have got the Hershey bar wing. Same width here, all right, same length of cord here as at the wingtip. So they call it a Hershey bar because it looks like a big flat chocolate bar. It's the same width the whole way along. Owners absolutely love their Hershey bar Cherokees. They love the strength of them, and they love their flight characteristics. Plus they're a bit shorter, they're easy to get into tighter hangars, and allegedly a little bit faster. I don't know about that one. Now up front, the heart and soul of this girl is the 235 horsepower Lycoming O540. Now she's not injected, it'd be an IO if it was injected, but they're a fantastic engine. They first came out in 1957, they're still in current production today, and they've been in everything from 230 horsepower variants all the way up to 350 horsepower turbocharged injected, like you'd find in your Piper Chieftains. Now the O just simply stands for opposed. They work like a boxer engine like you'd find in your typical Subaru or even Volkswagen. So because this 540 is derated to only produce 235 horsepower, it's a really understressed engine. So you won't find many that don't make it to their 2,000 hour TBO. They're not working very hard. Now the cool thing is, unlike a lot of Cherokees, you've actually got a constant speed prop on this one, all right? A 2-blader Hartzell prop really gets the best out of that horsepower and allows you to go, this one's good for about 135 knots true, which is awesome. As I said, direct competitor to that 182. Alrighty, so back on the wings again, I'll pop a drone shot in so you can see from above, you'll pick up that slab wing. They've got about 7 degrees dihedral in them, but the one thing these earlier Cherokees don't have is the washout, that angle of incidence washout where it decreases towards the tip, meaning that whilst they're very stable in flight, when you do a stall, they do have a greater tendency to drop a wing, unlike your later semi-tapered wings that you find on the later Archers, the Archer 2 onwards, and all of the Warriors. Now, fuel-wise, this one's got the tip tanks in it. So you've got 2 main tanks, same as you'd find in any other Cherokee. They're 90 litres a side usable. And then up here on the tips, you've got an extra 64 litres, all of it usable on each side. But now, while you can run them dry, just make sure you catch it before the engine starts coughing or your passengers are going to be mighty pissed off. With both the tip tanks and the main tanks full, you've got a whopping 308 usable litres of fuel in the aircraft, giving you around 4.7 hours total endurance, including reserves, at about 65 litres an hour, which is a typical fuel burn for this aircraft. Now, if you back that fuel off a bit, you're going to be able to carry a lot more. If you just run full main tanks, you're still going to get a safe 3 hours out of her, and you're going to be able to take just over 406 kilograms of cabin lift, which is awesome. Now, a lot of people complain that these slab wings are terrible at gliding. They say, throw a brick out the window and follow it, and that's pretty much your glide characteristics. Not quite true. These will still get about 1.3 nautical miles per 1,000 foot, which is still an excellent glide ratio, and it's actually not that far off the later models with the tapered wings. Now, most models of PA-28 Cherokees have recently been required to undergo a wing spar inspection airworthiness directive. for an eddy current inspection of the lower spar cap, which is where the lower part of the wing bolts into the carry through that goes through the cabin just aft of the front seats. Now, you'll want to make sure that any aircraft that you're going to buy, if you are thinking of purchasing one, has had that done. All right, because if you don't have one done, you're going to need an entire new wing spar. If you're interested in learning more, SoCal Flying Monkey on his YouTube channel, he's got a great shot of him having the test done on his gorgeous Cherokee 6. I'll link that above, just make sure you go check that out. So out the back, you'll find Piper's classic stabilator or full flying tail that they've got on the majority of their range of aircraft. Now, if you have a look, unlike your typical Cessna, they don't just have the hinged elevator at the back, the whole unit actually moves as one, giving you quite a lot of control authority, which gives rise to the need for what they call an anti-servo tab. Now, this doubles also as your trim control, but it actually moves in the same direction as the stabilator. Now, one thing to watch when you're doing your pre-flights on the Cherokee is these screws. Now, if the last person to do maintenance didn't do them up tightly, they can actually vibrate out and you do risk jamming the elevator. So definitely check that in your pre-flight thoroughly. Alrighty, so in 1972, as I said before, Piper stretched the fuselage by 5 inches, and the fuse is the same as what you'd find on a Piper Archer, which is cool. It means that someone like me, I'm just shy of 6 foot and I'm quite comfortable. My head doesn't quite hit the roof. I've got plenty of leg room. The other cool thing, you can easily reach around and grab your snacks out of the baggage area, which is of course accessed by its own baggage door from the outside. As you'd expect from a Piper, the cockpit is spacious and comfortable. All right, the front seats sit in front of that main spar carry through. Moving further forward, you've got the typical quadrant style with the addition, of course, of the blue lever and your classic Piper handbrake flap control, 3 stages. All right, in the center, you've got a roller trim wheel. Thank God they got rid of the windy trim wheel that you find on the older models that you inevitably always turn the wrong way 3 times before getting it right. So like a lot of your larger Cherokees that have these engines, your Lancers, Saratogas, Senecas, it's got this extra fuel drain here in the center, all right, a sump drain. Now they've often got these little doors on them, and often the doors are broken off. Now, if the door's broken off, or even if it's not, it's really important to brief your passengers, because if their foot accidentally catches that fuel drain and holds it down, all right, while you're up flying, the engine will be starved of fuel and you actually have an engine failure. So yeah, be aware of it, use it to check your fuel and brief your passengers on it. Alrighty, I think that's enough talking about it. Let's go flying.
Just letting it warm up. This one's fortunately got the JPI engine monitor fitted in it, which are awesome machines, and you can see actually all of the cylinder head temperatures in green, all of the exhaust gas temperatures in blue. It highlights the hottest ones and it gives you fuel flows, gives you litres used. Yeah, it's really cool. They're fantastic units. If I owned a plane, I'd 100% have a JPI in it. Bring it up to 1700. We'll check the propeller first. Got a drop in RPM. Next thing we're looking for is an increase in manifold pressure down here. Manifold pressure comes up, beautiful. Last thing we're looking for is a small change in oil pressure. Yeah, moved about a bee's dick. Rightio, next thing's Magneto, so set her at exactly 1700, so I've got a datum to work from. Go left mag. Drop is 110, back to both. And we'll go right mag. Drop is 1 at 100, that's good. Carburetor heat on, good drop. A little bit of an increase, there might have been a tiny bit of carby ice there. Keep it on for a bit longer, it is a coolish day, lots of visible moisture. And back off again. And back down, make sure she idles. And idles actually beautifully. We'll bring her back up to about 800 there. Alternator's charging, alternator works. Cool, so do a flow check. Fuel's on the right main, circuit breakers are in, fans off, heaters off, ADF is off, radios are set, Murray bridge, squelch is checked. Push to torque works, right, 1200 alt. That's set, transmitting comm 1, listening comm 1, moving across. Oil lights on because the pressure is just in the yellow, which is fine. At this lower RPM, all the lights work.
Oil.
The warning one works. That's coupled to the 430. The JPI all agrees with the analog gauges. 208 litres total on the right main, which is the fullest. VSI is on 0. Altimeter set for 180. Compass 140. Got an old school unslaved compass in it, and it's got a heading bug. We'll set the heading bug on the takeoff runway. Airspeed's on 0. Balance ball's a little bit out to the left. I did just do a right turn to pull up here. And she's balanced, ADF. Oil pressure's good. Oil temp's just coming into the green. Gauges are showing we've got the amount of fuel that we dipped before we got in. Fuel pressure's good, manifold's good, RPM's good. Autopilot I'm not going to use, so I'll keep that completely off. And moving down, fuel selector, flap set 1. Trims are neutral. I'll just check full travel of the trim. My favourite check, and I always do it every time before I enter the runway, whether I'm IFR or VFR, is pump strobes, transponder, pitot heat. So fuel pump on, alright, strobes on, transponder out 1200, or if you're IFR, whatever your code is, pitot heat if required if you're going into IMC, which we are not. Last check, trims, fuels, max, that's all the stuff that'll ruin our day. Alright, Ridge traffic, any Mark Tango, Cherokee enters, lines up, shortly rolls, 19er, Right, so this is just going to be a typical takeoff. Josh and I are just at a moderate weight. We've got sort of half tanks in all of the tanks, and just 2 of us on board, so probably fairly light. And I've just got 1 stage of flap. We would achieve better with 2 stages, but I'm just curious to see what sort of distance we use for takeoff. Just doing a normal sort of takeoff. Got probably 15 knots of headwind on the nose. Oh, I feel that 235 horsepower come to life. It goes a lot harder than your typical Cherokee. We've got RPM, we've got manifolds, T's and P's happy. There's some airspeed. We're already through 60. There's 65. Let's lift her off the deck just below 70. We're airborne in about 300. 350 foot in about 450. And off we go. We'll adopt best rate of climb. There, flaps now away because we're clear of all obstacles. I'll trim it. I've got to remember the electric trim is not functioning. And there we go. Look at that. About 1100 feet per minute, which is awesome. Especially cool day, not much on board. She climbs like an absolute rocket ship. Fuel pump coming off there. Pressure stable. Landing light off. Flaps are away. We're all good. Ridge traffic, Cherokee, Indy Mike Tango departs left crosswind runway 19er, maintaining 1,600. We're tracking southeast out over the Murraybridge Township. Murraybridge. I'm just going to set up, we're running 24 inches, 2400 RPM at 2,000 foot. The temperature is 8 degrees or 45 if you're playing at home in America. So 8 degrees at 2,000. Using it the old school way, doing it on the calibration card. But this little fella here that swivels and calibrates, and you can get a TAS reading off of the airspeed indicator. Looking at about 134 knots true airspeed at 65 litres an hour there. Not too bad. I'll just see if I can get that up. There she is, 66 litres an hour. It's running 50 rich of peak, 134 knots true, and we're only at 2,000 foot, so they get along. They're really not a bad aircraft for speed. Murraybridge traffic, Cherokee India Mike Tango is 7 miles to the southeast, maintaining 2,000, shortly on descent, inbound for the circuit at 17 Murraybridge. And just look after it. It doesn't have cow flaps like you might find in your Senecas and Cessnas, so it's a bit harder to control the cooling. Murraybridge traffic, Indy Mike Tango is a Cherokee, joins a long left downwind runway 19er for a full stop In terms of actually flying at the circuit, it flies just like any of your other Cherokees. They're just a bit heavier, and if you do get them slow, because they got the Hershey bar and a fair bit of weight, they develop a fair bit of a sink rate. But other than that, about 85 knots on base works quite nicely. They've still got the regular 3 stages of flap. I always land with full flap unless I'm in a crosswind, and if I've got enough runway, I'll use minimal flap. Cool, so we're 85, 90 knots base. Turning final now. I never use full flap until I'm on final. It's sort of like me saying, when I go full flap, it's sort of like me saying I'm committing to the landing. If I get a good landing, which you'll be able to tell from the tail GoPro, you got to give me a thumbs up. Alright, we go full flap there, cover it, heating off, prop full fine. Gear is down and welded. Down flaps don't have, and we're on the fullest tank. And looking for about 65 to 70 over the threshold, not much different to a regular Cherokee. Dirty stall is, what is it, high 50s in these. A little bit fast, bring that power back early. Glider in from there, a little bit of sink. Yeah, not my best, but not my worst. Rightio, I've just dropped Josh off. He's going to get a couple of videos of a couple of shots just off the takeoff and landing. We'll see how it goes without him on board. In terms of landing roll, that was all of about 400 metres, I reckon, probably less, maybe 300 metres. So yeah, they're not bad short field performers, probably not quite as good as the 182, but by no means a poor performer. Because they got that horsepower, they're bloody brilliant. They just pull. They don't stop pulling until you get up high. Once you get up through about 6,000 foot density altitude, the rate of climb drops off a fair way. But until then, the old Carby does a pretty good job. And they're a lot of fun. They're so much fun to fly. They really are more fun than your typical Cherokee. Maybridge traffic, Guinea Mike Tango Cherokee enters, lines up and rolls. Runway 19 for a low level circuit, Maybridge. Up to full power. I'd always do it nice and slow over about 5-6 seconds with these big engines. There's a lot of spinning metal there. Alright, we've got full RPM. Manifold pressure, temperatures, and pressures are all good. I'm just going to keep her on the deck just until I go past Josh here. There we go, up we go, we'll go flying there. And she climbs very steeply if you make her. There we go, there's 70 knot climb. We'll get rid of that first stage of flap there. Alright, turning final here at 500 foot. And we go 2 stages. And always wait till I'm on final for the final stage of flap. There it is. Alright, greens, blues and reds. And I'm going to pound idle there. And just do a gentle side slip. Just to demonstrate what I was talking about. Gear's definitely down, drops full fire, cow flaps not applicable. Carburetor heat can come back off again so we don't bring dust in from the ground. And with these big heavy fronts on these, same as the 182s, always roll in a bit of back trim just before landing. That way they're trimmed for the flare, because remember, when you reduce power, the aircraft wants to pitch down. What do you do when you come into land? You reduce power, aircraft wants to pitch down, land on the nose wheel. So a bit of back trim will make your landings much better. Bring it in here and see if we can get a good one for Josh. Not too bad. They're fairly heavy. They're hard to get a real greaser. You can get a bit of a greaser, but you're going to struggle to get a real good one. Alrighty, we'll pick up Josh and shoot back up the hangar.
I hope you guys enjoyed the walk around of our Piper Pathfinder. Really cool aircraft and I absolutely love it. Plus I did my commercial in it, so it really has a bit of a soft spot. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give us a thumbs up, subscribe. We've got a bunch more cool content coming out. We'll see you in the next one.